Ethereal Form is an incredibly powerful defensive spell. Cast it to gain a buff that lasts about 5 seconds, which lets you auto-dodge the next attack against you. This animation is so long, it very often actually auto-dodges 2 attacks. Better yet, when you dodge, you gain 1 Skyborn Might, functionally refunding the cost so you can spam it infinitely. Which also means, if you time everything well, functionally, you're immune to damage. Now the spell is found as you explore Chapter 3 Mount Zhenwu, but you can actually go there right after you finish Chapter 1 Warships Rise. For this guide, I am going to start from the Refugee Camp. But if you've just finished Chapter 1, and you want instructions on how to get there from the Hillswatch Shrine, check my previous Red Mercury farming video. It includes instructions on how to get to the Refugee Camp. Now, like with last time, I'm going to do a fairly quick how to get there with narration and a lot of cuts, then a full walkthrough going from the camp to the location without commentary. And last but not least, I'll finish things up with a couple of boss tips on how to use the spell. And so, without further ado, let's jump into it. First, from the Refugee Camp, head down the hill and to the right. Now, as you progress, you're going to want to hug the left side here, because as you go down into the lower area, there's going to be a dangerous foe that'll try to attack you. Yeah, I kind of killed him from a feather, and he doesn't respawn, so he's not here now. But if you don't want to fight him, and he's pretty annoying, just hug left, avoid him, and get to the ladder that goes down into the enemy camp. Now in the camp, you have to be really careful because there are landmines everywhere, and they're the exact same color as the rest of the floor. They hit extremely hard, and if you trigger one of these in combat, you're probably just dead. So to get around this, I recommend avoiding the center of paths. They're pretty much right in the middle of where you'd walk. I don't know who puts landmines right the fuck in the middle of where they'd be walking and all their soldiers would be walking, but yeah, here we are. Now you can either take the left or the right path through the camp. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to take the right path here. I'm also going to be running past enemies, but you can kill them all if you prefer. The cannons hug the side. This way, when the cannonball hits the explosive pots, they don't one-shot you. Then head straight through to the gap in the wall. After this, you'll turn left. You'll be in a narrow corridor where a guy with a cannon is going to shoot at you. As you see the cannonball approach, that's your cue to dodge. You can also kill the 2 enemies here, or abuse iframes to find a window to open the door. After that, run straight up the stairs so that you can get the Zhenwu Antechamber Shrine. From what I found, a lot of the enemies will be really annoying and shoot at you from a distance if you try to fight them on the staircase, but they won't actually follow you into the antechamber room. So it's a perfect time to grab a shrine and rest. Now for the early parts, I recommend running past enemies, but for this section, I think you should kill most of the enemies, especially the summoners, as it's going to make things much, much easier. So head left, kill the summoner immediately, then head into the building, go up the stairs, kill the enemy at the top, and then head left again and go up the ladder until you reach the pagoda roof. This next part is pretty tricky because there's a Lotus Summoner who fires spells, and the enemies can easily knock you off the roof. I found the best way to deal with this was kind of lure foes back around the corner, out of line of sight of a summoner, and killing them one by one. This was the easiest thing that worked for me, but as you can see from a bloodstain, yeah, it took me more than one try. Now for the next section, you will want Despair Resistance gear. I recommend either the Delicate set or the Palace Maid set, because the enemy you're about to fight radiates despair and will kill you pretty quickly. You can just run past and risk it, but I found it a lot easier to wear anti-despair gear, pop my temperance, and just burst the enemy down. Next up, go down the stairs and head across the room. As you do, an enemy will spawn out of the pots to ambush you. This foe is quite dangerous, so I recommend quickly kicking down the short ladder. This way, if you die to the enemy, you have a shortcut back to the shrine. I also found that a lot of the time it kind of gets stuck shooting ranged attacks at you through the ladder, which you can use to block the shot. And so I just went up the ladder and completely ignored it and went about my business. This ladder is also why you really want to kill the summoner, as otherwise there's a good chance he's going to shoot you from across the way and knock you off the ladder to your death. And so from here, simply head across the bridge and you'll find yourself in an open courtyard. To the right, there's a couple of dudes on cannons that'll probably shoot at you. You can either run past them or just kill them. And directly in front of you, there's a guy at an altar. You can also run past him, but I found it easier to just take the time to kill him. I was using a clash build, so he couldn't really do anything to me, and I was able to burst him down fairly quickly. After this, you're basically at your goal. Ethereal Form is located on the corpse in the upper right portion of this courtyard, so I suggest walking over carefully to not attract attention from the summoners in the middle. I found it easier to just ignore them and not have to deal with them firing spells at me, them summoning soldiers, or any of that kind of stuff. So simply sneak across, grab a spell, and congratulations, you now have the most OP defensive buff in the game. Alright, and so that's the TLDR of how to find Ethereal Form. If you found this helpful, then please do be sure to leave a like. And if you want to know about more stuff in Wuchang Fallen Feathers, let me know down below in the comments what you want to see, and also get subscribed. Now from here, I'm going to go through the entire thing again. This is going to be the full walkthrough portion where I start from a shrine in the refugee camp and go all the way to the item location, more or less unedited. There's going to be a little jump in the middle because, like I said, it took me a couple tries to get past the guy on the roof. And then after that, I'm going to talk about a few tips on how to actually use the spell in combat, especially against bosses. And with that, congratulations, you have your spell and you're officially overpowered. Now it's time for some tips and tricks. The first is if a spell has a little bit of a cast time, but you can get around this by chain casting it. So as soon as the dodge triggers, start pressing Y again. This should cast the spell and immediately refresh the buff so that as soon as the boss attacks you again, you're going to have another auto dodge. I also feel like it animation cancels, though with all the smoke I can't 100% confirm that. Now, the second tip I have is that the buff lasts a few seconds, but sometimes the boss actually remains idle for longer than the 5-second duration of the spell. So try to not cast it too early, especially if the boss is just kind of standing in the distance role-playing with himself. If you do, it's going to fall off by the time you're actually attacked, and that can be a bit unpleasant. Last but not least, this spell is great against bosses who use martial arts, because you can't clash or deflect these attacks, but you can meld into the void. Similarly, it's very good against enemies with AoE spells, as you don't need to worry about precise timing. Simply merge into the void and win. Since the Skyborn Might cost is refunded, you're not really expending any resources here, at least as long as your dodge actually triggers. So, put the buff up, start smacking the boss. I found, especially on the longsword, but honestly on the dual blades as well, it was really easy to keep this buff up. And if you're playing a spellcaster, this means you don't have to use the Dark Frost Edge, but you still get all the defensive benefits of Evasive Maneuver, allowing you to use a weapon with higher spell scaling for even more damage. And so yeah, that's my video on where to find Ethereal Form and a few tips on how to use it on bosses. Again, please do let me know if you have any other questions about the game down in the comments, like if there's a boss you're stuck on, if you're wondering about stuff in general, if it has to do with NPCs and side quests. Honestly, I'm not sure I'll be able to answer it because I'm really confused about that stuff, but bosses and mechanics I've got a pretty good grasp at this point. Also, if you are looking for a red mercury farming spot, check out my previous video. If you're stuck on Honglan, I have a video on that, and I'll probably be making a couple other boss-related videos, or at the very least, a couple more build videos in the near future. So, that's it. Thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.